The expedition of Ferdinand Magellan in the Philippines is a tale of exploration, ambition, and a tragic encounter that would have far-reaching implications for the region's history and European colonialism. This narrative, spanning from the early 16th century, is a complex and multifaceted story that reflects the intricacies of early global exploration, cultural exchanges, and the often brutal realities of colonial ambition. Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese explorer sailing under the Spanish flag, embarked on his historic expedition in 1519 with the primary goal of finding a westward route to the Spice Islands, modern-day Indonesia. The journey, commissioned by King Charles I of Spain, aimed to establish Spanish trade routes to the lucrative spice markets of Asia, challenging the Portuguese monopoly established by earlier voyages around Africa. Magellan's fleet, consisting of 5 ships, the Trinidad, San Antonio, Concepcion, Victoria, and Santiago, set sail from Seville on September 20, 1519. The expedition was fraught with challenges from the outset. The crew faced mutinies, harsh weather, and navigational uncertainties as they crossed the Atlantic, navigated the treacherous straits at the southern tip of South America, later named the Strait of Magellan, and entered the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. After months of arduous sailing and the loss of 2 ships, the remaining vessels reached the Marianas in March 1521. It was here that Magellan and his crew had their first significant encounters with the indigenous peoples of the Pacific. On March 16, 1521, Magellan's fleet arrived at the island of Hominhan in the Philippines. This event marked the first recorded interaction between Europeans and the peoples of the Philippine archipelago. The initial contact was relatively peaceful. The locals, led by Raja Kalambu of Limasawa, welcomed Magellan and his crew, offering them food and provisions. This hospitality was reciprocated with gifts from the Europeans, fostering a sense of mutual respect and cooperation. Magellan's time in the Philippines was characterized by a series of strategic alliances and religious conversions. Recognizing the potential for establishing Spanish influence, Magellan sought to convert the local rulers to Christianity. On March 31, 1521, the first documented Catholic Mass in the Philippines was celebrated on the island of Limasawa, marking the beginning of a significant religious and cultural transformation in the region. Raja Humabon of Cebu and his queen, along with hundreds of their followers, were baptized, symbolizing their acceptance of the new faith and allegiance to the Spanish crown. However, the initial peaceful interactions and conversions masked underlying tensions and conflicts. Magellan's attempts to exert control over the local rulers and his insistence on converting them to Christianity were met with resistance from some indigenous leaders. One such leader was Lapu-Lapu, the chieftain of Mactan Island. Lapu-Lapu and his people resisted Magellan's demands, leading to a confrontation that would prove fatal for the Portuguese explorer. On April 27, 1521, Magellan, confident in his military prowess and the superiority of his European arms, decided to subdue Lapu-Lapu and his forces. He led a small contingent of his men in an assault on Mactan. However, the battle did not go as planned. Magellan and his men were met with fierce resistance from Lapu-Lapu's warriors. The terrain of Mactan, with its shallow waters and coral reefs, hindered the Europeans' movements and neutralized the advantage of their weapons. Magellan was struck down in the ensuing skirmish, his death marking a significant turning point in the expedition. Magellan's death on the shores of Mactan was a blow to his crew and the mission's objectives. Leadership of the expedition fell to Juan Sebastián Elcano, who managed to rally the remaining men and continue the journey. Despite the loss of their leader, the expedition pressed on, navigating through the Philippine archipelago and eventually reaching the Spice Islands. Elcano and the remaining crew finally completed the first circumnavigation of the globe, returning to Spain in 1522 aboard the Victoria, the only ship to survive the entire voyage. The impact of Magellan's expedition on the Philippines and global history cannot be overstated. While the immediate outcomes included the tragic loss of Magellan and several of his crew, the long-term effects were profound. The initial contact between Europeans and the peoples of the Philippines set the stage for the subsequent Spanish colonization of the archipelago, which began in earnest in 1565 with the arrival of Miguel López de Legazpi. Spanish colonization brought significant changes to the Philippines. The introduction of Christianity, European governance, and new economic systems transformed the social, cultural, and political landscape of the islands. The legacy of these changes is evident in the Philippines today, where Catholicism remains a dominant religious force, and many aspects of Spanish culture are woven into the fabric of Filipino society. Magellan's expedition also had broader implications for global exploration and colonialism. The successful circumnavigation of the globe demonstrated the feasibility of long-distance sea travel and trade, encouraging further expeditions and the eventual establishment of global trade networks. The encounters with indigenous peoples during these voyages highlighted the complexities of cultural exchanges and the often violent consequences of European expansion. The story of Ferdinand Magellan's expedition in the Philippines is thus a multifaceted narrative of exploration, conflict, and transformation. It encapsulates the ambitions and challenges of early global exploration, the cultural and religious dynamics of first contact, and the enduring impact of colonial encounters. Magellan's journey, though marked by tragedy, paved the way for a new era in global history, shaping the destinies of nations and peoples across the world.